So I got to wondering not about the recent of these, you know, but all of just most of them, many of them. And not trying to say anything bad back in the day, but just wondering because I saw somebody who had commented about how the Talmud, the rabbi religion that uses the Talmud, that they do have six genders. They really don't. They don't. When you really look at the six that they list, it's still either or. But that's what got me on this track because I was looking up intersex. Okay, so intersex, for those that don't know, by definition, is when someone generally appears to be one sex but has the dominant anatomy of the other sex, or when someone is born in between the typical male and female sexes. So it's very, very rare, first of all. But for whatever reason, all of a sudden it's exploding. Like there's movements about, them wanting to be recognized. But it's a small amount of people unless it's increased. And then we have this, the transgender craze popularity thing going on. But what made me start wondering about it is because if somebody is born, it is very, very, very rare. But when it does happen, the next step usually is the doctor brings in a specialist that can look at the internal organs to determine the gender. So then I got to thinking, because some people, have both characteristics, okay? Which in that case, till they get to an age when they want to decide, then they can decide or do what they want. We shouldn't have doctors like, Northwestern was doing that back in the day on all these, they made an apology about it. Doing all this, like changing of, genders, or I'm not going to go into that. You can look it up. Anyway, but I thought, well, what caused this? So I went back to see who was the very first intersex. And really, at least scientifically speaking, it looks like around 1885 or 1890. And then from there, well, let me tell you who that was first. Yeah, the birth was 1885. Was a German Israel author, social worker, Karl Bayer, reformer, suffragist, and Zionist, both born intersex and assigned female at birth. He came out as trans man in 1904. At the age of 21, in December 1906, he became the first transgender person to undergo sex reassignment surgery and became one of the first transgender people to gain full recognition of his gender identity by having a male birth certificate issued in 1907. However, some researchers have disputed his label as a trans man, theorizing that he was intersex and not transgender. So that was 1885, okay, intersex. So then I wanted to know when just the very beginning of any of these. Because, and there's a couple of reasons that can be for the whole intersex thing. One of the problems is a congenital adrenal hyperplasia. It's a group of autosomal recessive disorders characterized by impaired cortisol synthesis, all in regards to hormones, many different hormones, sex steroids, all of that. So that's one of the links, okay? So as far as when it has here, this is a timeline of the development of prophylactic human. Early ones may be listed by the first year of development or testing, but later entries show the year this was finished and trials became available, okay? Although these have existed for the diseases listed below, only smallpox has been eliminated worldwide. Well, it hasn't, because now the science has said, no, we have an outbreak here because people aren't going and, doing all this. But that was supposed to be eliminated. If they eradicate, then it makes none of it adds up. It doesn't when you really think about it. But most people just don't think about it. It doesn't add up. Don't say something's eradicated and science eradicated it when 20 years down the line you're going to say, oh, it's back. Because then you've just been playing with animals and human cells, doing things that seem to then somehow we end up getting bird flu and bat flu, whatever, avian flu. Anyway, that's not where I'm going with this. So anyway, so to the very first one, the 19th century, although before that in the 18th century, was it 17? I can't see it now. 1796, no, 1896, or maybe 1796. Edward Jenner develops and documents first vaccine for smallpox, okay? So 1796. From there, it jumps to 1880, which was the first vaccine for cholera by Louis Pasteur. 1885 was the first vaccine for rabies. 1890, first vaccine for tetanus. 1896, first vaccine for typhoid fever. 1897, a vaccine for the plague. So from 1796, really from 1880 to 1897, there was a lot of these, huh? So then this started me thinking that, is this having some impact on hormones? I know I'm not an expert, of course, and they'd refute everything I'm saying because they're so, themselves. But there was a lot of articles put out, and of course the science. I think every study that science puts out, especially in regards to anything with this stuff, any of them, I mean, it's like just trying to cover their ass and refuting people like me who, science used to be where you could ask questions. So, some people may have heard about this, that menstrual changes in women after taking this, the one that was most recent. So PubMed had some articles on this, maternal COVID-19 vaccination and its potential impact on fetal and neonatal development. So then that brings me back to the intersex. Because when I went on to read, and nothing that stood out drastically, just bear with me here. We know that there were women that had some menstrual changes, nothing that was major in most cases that I know of. Well, not that they would say, or I'm sure doctors that are speaking up, but are silenced, but are on like Rumble and stuff have talked about it. I'm sure there probably has been. And then they also have an article from PubMed, vaccination for endocrine patients, and so endocrine is all about the hormones, growth hormones, all that. And so then reading further on and more articles about COVID-19 vaccines and menstrual cycles, in 2022, in an international study of data from nearly 20,000 people who received any of the 9 different COVID vaccines, researchers have confirmed a link between COVID-19 vaccination and an average increase in menstrual cycle length of less than 1 day. This increase was not associated with any change in the number of days of bleeding, and for most of the study participants, the increase in the menstrual cycle following the vaccination. So they basically said there was nothing major that happened. However, how do you not know that any of these didn't have impacts on the development of a fetus then? Because then they talk about the role of estrogen and estrogen receptor in regards to COVID-19. Now they put this just like they want to call long COVID. How do you know long COVID is from COVID-19? Or you don't know. So researchers found a molecular pathway that regulates the influence of sex hormones on SARS-CoV-2 infection symptoms. Let me follow this up with a second video because I know I'm trying to be careful, which it probably won't do any good anyway. It'll get suppressed or pulled, but I'll follow it up with one more.